Hi everyone, look at the attack that's about to happen. The war that's brewing right now. Now, I'm not talking about the war in Palestine. I'm not talking about anything to do with Iran or any other Arab nation. I'm not talking about the war against Greenland, Norway, Denmark that Trump's envisaging, or even the war on Canada that Trump's kind of thinking about doing. Now, I'm talking about a far more personal war, one a lot closer to home. And you might well be thinking, oh, what's he talking about? I've not read anything. Well, you have, you've just not realised that it's a war. And it's a war upon the most vulnerable people in our society. And it's done under the name of benefits fraud. What they are doing is vilifying every single person on benefits. They are trying to make out that all the issues in this country, all the poverty, all the austerity are down to people claiming benefits. Is that true? No, not even remotely true. They're trying to make you believe that friends, members of your community, or even your family, or even yourselves are the cause of this country being in the state it is. None of that's true. What is true is that over decades of neoliberal conservative governments, and that's including New Labour and this current version of Labour, the country has been asset stripped. What do I mean by asset stripped? Is it like, somebody's taken all your shares away? Well, yeah, they have. What they've done is they've stolen all the shares that we had in publicly owned services. They've taken those away from us, sold them at cheap rates, and put them all on the open market. Yeah, we've got to be clear, we're doing it the right way. But the majority of people that hold those shares now, they're not your mum and dad. They're not your cousins. They're not Bill at work. The people that control the people that supposedly run this country. They're the people that own all the media, all the TV, that own, to be honest, a lot of the politicians. And the people that we see as the super rich that we shouldn't tax, well, they're benefiting from all of that. What does it mean for us? Well, it means for us that we're being fed a load of absolute bullshit about why this country is on its knees. When they asset stripped the country, what they did is they went into whole communities and they looked at the manufacturing, they looked abroad at what they could make, as in like cuts with wages and shipping and all the rest, and they transferred all our engineering skills to those countries, all our machinery to those countries. So suddenly, Sheffield, for instance, it was a big, massive steel industry. What happened? Well, all the factories now are empty. Some have turned into shops, some into nightclubs, quite a lot just into nothing, into rubble. Whole communities lost the income for the majority of the people in that community overnight. And Sheffield isn't alone. Anywhere there were coal mines, the the mining industry was destroyed deliberately. It was a war on unions, not just on the miners. It wasn't about getting coal cheaper from India or wherever else they decided they were going to. It was to destroy the unions. And why would they want to destroy the unions? Well, before the unions became kind of as corrupt as they are now, the unions represented the workers. The unions are the organisations that set up the Labour Party. Obviously not this Labour Party, but the Socialist Workers' Party. Labour means labour. It means the people that laboured in the factories, on the land. They haven't got control of this pseudo party anymore, though, have they? No, that's been bought out. And it's been bought out by members of the establishment. And what's the establishment? Well, the establishment are the people with power and money that control everything they can control. They will tell you what you can and can't watch. They will bring in laws by influencing the lawmakers, sometimes with bribes, sometimes with presents, quite often with a bit of blackmail on top. And they will say, we want a law to stop this, we want a law to stop that, we want a law to allow us to do this, but stop everybody else doing it. And by doing that, they have taken away the powers of the unions, because if the unions were still strong, they'd be stood against them going, we're not letting that happen. No, you can't have that happen. We're going to hold these to account. And how do they hold them to the account? They organise. That was the strength of the unions, was organisation. It was getting all the people in each company together and saying, our brothers and sisters over in that company over there are being treated like animals. So what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to go out on strike as well, so that our boss puts pressure on their boss. We're going to go out on strike because if they don't have the things we make, they can't make what they've got to make. They can't make the money. And when the unions linked up, that became a really, really powerful force. That became something that the employers couldn't deal with. And that was the point of asset stripping the nation, because we had powerful unions when they began this. But then they found out as well, when they asset stripped, they could make more money. Because what they did is, first of all, they privatised all the companies that we owned. All the things that were part of our belonging were taken from us. Were we recompensed? No. We ended up paying higher fares on the buses and the trains, more money to the energy companies, more money to the water companies, with a reduction in quality of all. Even the telephones. All right, we all had landlines in them days, but we had engineers that would come out and deal with it. You'd phone up and somebody would put you on a list, and you might wait 2 or 3 days at the most for somebody to come and knock on your door and say, come fix your phone. Or more often than not, knock on your door and say, oh, we fixed your phone. It was a problem with that box out there. Now, obviously, technology moves on, but so could have that service industry. But no profit there. And profit to these people is God. Profit to these people is every single thing they live by. They're not interested in any empathy to you. They're not interested in how you live, what kind of lives you lead, whether you're being attacked on the streets, whether you're being mugged. They don't care. They don't even care if you're getting ill or injured, what kind of treatment you're getting. What they're interested in is what money they can make from your treatment. There's easy ways to end crime in areas. ways that worked for donkey's years, for decades and decades and decades. Things like making sure that there are things for people to do, especially young people. Give them facilities. Give them youth clubs. Give them freedom. Give them places to explore. Give them places to develop, ways to develop. And all of that's been taken away. Try and find a youth club anywhere that is funded by the local authorities right now. I don't think you will. Several years ago, I trained to be a professional youth worker. And sadly, before I finished the course, I had a motorcycle accident and broke both my arms. You certainly find out who your friends are when that happens, I tell you. But at that point, I was working in the inner cities, and I was working with young people that were being pulled into gangs, into drugs, into the suppliers of drugs. County Lines at that point wasn't the major supplier, but it was certainly building up. I was working with young kids that were 9-10 years old and carrying a 9mm pistol in the pockets. This is true. That was in Manchester. That was places like the Merseybank estate, Wythenshawe, Withington, Moss Side, Rusholme, Levenshulme even. Other sides of Manchester, you've got Cheetham Hill, you've got parts of Oldham. All of these places had already got major issues for young people, but at that point we were still kind of keeping people engaged, keeping the youngsters engaged. Not all of them, because a lot of them wanted the lifestyle, I'm going to be a gangster. They didn't know what it meant, but they wanted it. They wanted the nice clothes and, you know, money to spend on the girlfriends and whatever else, and then suddenly they're wearing big gold chains, and when they're old enough, or even before they're old enough, driving around in some big posh car or whatever. And to some degree we can never change that. To some degree that's always going to be part of society, or at least this society, but it's going to get worse and worse. And now we've got people being knifed every single day. We probably haven't got the worst gun crime, but we still have gun crime. But all of that could be reduced. It could be dealt with, it could be avoided, but it's not. So what you've got is you've got a government that have withdrawn all the services for young people. What else have they withdrawn? All the services for young people that involve care. So your options of actually doing intervention work, bear in mind, after I didn't end up being a full-time youth worker, I did end up getting qualified as a social worker, and I worked for a lot of years in social work, and I worked all over the UK troubleshooting. I worked locally, I worked at the other side of the country, I worked in other countries in the UK. And when I first started out, we had support, we had things like Sure Start centres, and that was something that New Labour did do right. They brought in Sure Start and they put some investment into that. The Tories got in with the Lib Dems and stripped the funding away for that. And what was absolutely something that worked with families, that gave families hope, gave them support, gave them a chance to survive, gave the young people a chance to develop properly without having to live under the cloud of abuse that they were living under. And abuse takes all different kinds of manner. When you think of abuse, we think about sexual abuse, and that is absolutely one of the worst types of abuse out there. But so are all the others. Anything that's abuse has a massive impact on people's lives. It impacts on how they deal with their lives. So all the support for the families to try and take them out of poverty, to try and make sure that there were people looking after the kids when they needed to be, that the schools were working along with social care and social services as it was in them days, and trying to bring out the best outcomes for these kids, whether it was sexual abuse, whether it was physical abuse, whether it was neglect. All of those are emotional abuse. Right? The kids had some options in them days. They've got very few now. They've got very few because all the support that we did have has gone. Local authorities haven't got the money to do proactive social work. They haven't got the money to do proactive education. They haven't got any money for youth work. There's no resources. We moan about the roads being full of potholes, and we should do, because that's putting lives at risk all the time. But all the money for all the other things has dried up as well. And why is that money dried up? Why aren't central government giving the local authorities the money that they need? Well, let's think about that. 9 billion pounds, 9 billion, right, is going towards realistically undisclosed work on the Royal Navy submarine fleet. Now, I'm not saying we should be a nation without a navy or an army or an air force. If we've got them, they should be fit for purpose, but it's about what that purpose is. And right now, we're paying however much that we pay every year for Trident. What's Trident? Well, Trident's our nuclear deterrent, seemingly. The problem with Trident is, though, that we can't fire it. We can, if it's at a target that America agree with, because America have got all the codes. America own Trident. We rent Trident from them. It was our technology in the first place. Not that we should be proud of designing nuclear weapons, but it was our technology. And we sold it to America, and America now charge us for using it, but only under their conditions. Which, you know, we could always say, well, they've been our biggest ally. And in a way they have, until very recently. And then suddenly we're on Mr. Bush's target map. So there's a possibility, very faint one, but possibility, that sometime we would have to use that weapon in brinkmanship, which is where you say, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back, but with this. And if you hit me with that, then I'm going to get my hammer and I'm going to hit you over the head with the hammer. That's what brinkmanship is. Threat after threat after threat. But we can't threaten them if they've got all the codes to fire the weapons. So that kind of makes it a bit useless to us. And also, who else are we going to fire it at? Who else do we actually want to fire a weapon that in effect will destroy the Earth? Now, our nuclear deterrent certainly would damage the Earth, possibly kill off most of the people on the planet eventually. But it wouldn't just be us firing if we were firing at another nuclear power, would it? It'd be them as well. There'd be none of us left. We'd just be a pile of ash. If there were any bodies left, they'd just be radioactive and nobody could ever bury them. Animals couldn't even eat them. They'd probably be quite well preserved, to be honest, because even the insects likely wouldn't be able to touch them. The bacteria would all be destroyed, you know. It would just be a pile of remains. So we can't use that weapon, but we could spend £9 billion when we've got shortages in support for people, in support services. We've got energy suppliers that used to be ours that now are charging people to make more and more money for their shareholders. And again, not your granny, not your Uncle Bob. Their shareholders, the people that own the majority of shares, are already super rich. They're already on the rich list. So where do we go from there? Well, if we had a socialist government, we would now be privatising those companies again. And we'd be saying, right, you're not extorting money out of the British people anymore. We're not buying into super weapons that we can't use. We're going to invest that 90 billion back into the country. Oh, and the 300 billion that we promised to Ukraine. Now, why would we promise that to Ukraine? Any answers? Could it be something to do with minerals? Could it be something to do with the entire situation in the Ukraine was kind of manufactured to get lithium? Could it be that by putting our private companies into Ukraine when the war does end, that shareholders again could make more money? Could it be that at the moment shareholders are making a fortune off the munitions we're selling? That we are putting Ukraine into huge debt to us? It's not just Britain. I mean, we know that America's got their foot in there, and Germany, and probably France. I don't know. Although I think France actually backed away from it. So it's not a moral war. It's not a war where we're going, oh, well, we're going to do this because, you know, we see that the wrong in what Putin's doing. I'm not saying Putin's a good bloke either. But what we've got to understand is that to make Ukraine happen, we had to kind of push the Russian people into feeling scared that we were going to strip them of their culture and their safety and their borders. And we did a really good job of that. We were talking about inviting Ukraine into NATO. Well, NATO was never supposed to be an imperial power. It was never supposed to be a tool for corporations, because that's what it's all about, and their shareholders to make money. But it is now. I might be boring everybody's pants off here. I've been talking for 23 minutes, nearly 24 minutes now, and it's all a bit here and there, but it's a bit here and there because all my waking thoughts right now are a bit here and there. I'm seeing things firsthand, and then I'm watching things secondhand going on that absolutely scare me to death. And not for me. I'm not that well, right? I might be here in 10 years' time. I might well not be here in 10 weeks' time. I don't know, right? That's how my life is right now. My kids probably don't really ever want to hear from me again, but they're still my kids. All of your kids, I don't want to leave them a world that is destroyed because of greed, where cruelty is used to sate greed. And that's what we've got. It's not a party political broadcast because I don't think we've got a party in the UK right now that actually will meet the needs of this country, the people of this country. I don't think we've got a population that can pull themselves together enough to vote one party, and I don't even think we've got a democracy, to be honest, because when you look at it, and the companies that count the votes are owned by the Conservative Party and their bosses, and even then the Conservative Party lost. But why was that? Oh, because Labour are more right wing than them now. It's worrying. And people are going, oh, well, we can get this done through reform. Reform will do this, reform will do that. Reform are another right wing, greed filled, profiteering party. They've been bought out by Musk. Come on. Are we going to make all the same mistakes that America are making right now? Years ago, not that many years ago, but years ago, Italy was the laughingstock of the world. And why were they the laughingstock? Well, because they had the most corrupt government of anywhere, really. And suddenly, they're not. Suddenly, Britain, and I'm talking about certainly from Brexit onwards, have truly got the most corrupt government. We have got politicians that take bribes and presents and promotions from foreign powers. We have got, at the moment, a government, the Labour government, that in my view has been groomed. We talk about grooming gangs. Well, the biggest grooming gang in the world is Mossad. And we've got a government that's been groomed by Mossad, not for sexual favours, but for political favours, for power, for control of British policy. Why do you think Starmer is so defensive of Israel? Is it because of his beliefs in a country that really he's got no massive links with? No. Is it because he feels guilt towards the Jewish people for what happened in the Second World War? No. Starmer and probably most of his cabinet, if not all, have been groomed by presents, by bribes, by whatever means possible by the Israelis. Look at how many of them go over to Israel on a regular basis. Photographs taken sat on tanks wearing IDF t-shirts. Why would a politician do that? Why would any politician want to dress up as a soldier in the first place, never mind whether abroad or here? Why would they pretend to be a tank driver when they're not? I'm truly sorry that people are watching this and thinking I'm going to come out with some big, great answer, because I'm not. This is kind of my musings as to where we are, and it's not a good place. We cannot allow this government, this new world order, to continue the way it does. We are called eaters by the people really in control. And why is that? Because all they see us as are the people that take away their resources. The only other role we have in this world right now is that of being a measure for them to measure their wealth. Like Elon Musk can look at me and go, well, I've got nearly 500 billion pound more than he's got. I don't care. What would I do with that kind of money? Give it away. Maybe that's why I'm never going to be a billionaire. What would I do with that kind of power? I'd give that away, but to the right people. And it wouldn't be people like Elon Musk. It wouldn't be to people even like Richard Branson or Bill Gates or even Trump or Starmer. The first quality I would look at in any MP would be empathy. And not somebody that can pretend to have it. If you can pretend to have empathy, then you're either sociopathic or psychopathic. Because empathy's either there or it isn't. And people can put on a show to pretend. Sooner or later, that veil drops, doesn't it? And they show the true selves. Like Rachel Reeve and like Keir Starmer and even Angela Rayner. We cannot allow this fake democracy, and it is fake, to continue in the UK. We cannot allow fascism to build up any further in the UK. We need to end this now. It needs to be now. We cannot turn a blind eye. That's what happened in Germany in 1933. And look what happened. Look at the atrocities that happened to this world. Look at the number of deaths associated, not just in Germany, but throughout the world because of the expansion plans. Trump's already talking about widening the borders of America. That's fascism. Israel, they're trying to expand. Oh, it's breathing space. No, it's not. It's invasion. It's genocide. If you're still watching this, truly am sorry. I'm not trying to waste your time. All I want is for other people to understand that if your thoughts are anything along mine, that you're not on your own. That some of us can see through what's going on. And I'm not a soldier. I'm not a fighter. I'm not somebody that's going to be inspiring millions of people. But I will do anything I can to support somebody that I truly believe in. So whoever you are out there that I can believe in, please stand forward. Show yourself. Let us find somebody to really follow. Somebody that's able to tell the truth. Somebody that can hold your eye, can look into your soul and you look into theirs and go, that's a good person. And there are people out there. I've met some really good people in my life and I've met some really evil people. Working in child protection, you meet both. I've had people that I see as pure evil that I've had to work along with, not alongside, along with, to try and keep children safe because we've not yet been able to build enough evidence to remove the children. And you have to be polite, you have to be professional. And all the time inside you're going, this person doesn't deserve air. But now we've got a government, we've had a government for some time, not just Labour, that I see in the same way, because I'm seeing what they're doing to our nation, stripping the NHS, stripping the last vestiges of the things that we do own in Britain. Anyway, I'm sorry to have bored you for so long. Thank you for watching, and maybe we will find that person to lead us all. Thank you.